Sorry, I was just singing. We're live. My husband is cooking some soup, and I was singing because he was whining about something, and so we call it whinging. And so I was calling him a Whingy McWingerson because everything is funnier when you add the name with a son at the end. Like my kids used to tell me I was Grumpy McGrumperson. I forgot where I was going with that. Oh, hey, Mom. Mother-in-law's in here. My first and only viewer tonight. Thanks for joining me. If this is your first time viewing me, can you scrape that a little quieter? Right up. Quick. Are we done? Are we good? We could always just use one of those fancy baking spatulas. Okay. Don't put water in it. You'll warp the pan. Good grief. I swear, you'd think I just married him yesterday, and he has no idea how to be an adult. So if you're joining me for the first time, my name is Sunny Brigham. I'm a board-certified clinical and integrative nutritionist. I make weird hand movements with my hand, and tonight I've got a super awesome cup. Let's see if you can read that. I got this from a trainer/client from my retirement. That was pretty awesome. I like it. It's my new favorite cup. Tonight we're talking anxiety and gut health, and we're going to talk about how the two of them relate. So I'll be 100% honest with you, and I think I've been honest with people on the lives before. These make me very anxious, so I sweat a lot, which you guys can't see, thankfully, and I talk really fast. And so mentally I try to tell myself to slow down, but sometimes it just doesn't happen, and I do weird things like that. So tonight we're going to talk about gut health and anxiety. Somewhere, I never know where, but the blog is linked somewhere around your screen. It's like a scavenger hunt. You have to find the blog. You find the blog. After the live, you can click it and read it. I'm going to talk a little bit about it, summarize it a little here and there, but you're going to get most of your information from the blog. So let's jump to it, shall we? Okay. So you have to forgive me. I was talking for the last hour and some change, and then I had like a 20-minute quick break, and now I'm at it again. So anxiety is a super common thing. It happens to a lot of people. There's a lot of different ways that people can get anxiety. One of them is a situation. So it could have been something that they saw or something that they participated in that caused them to get anxiety, for it to flare up, for them to feel anxious in situations. Some people, it is very situational to where only situations will bring out their anxiety. For instance, like social anxiety, those sorts of things. But a lot of people get anxiety when they have a disordered gut. And I see this a lot in people that didn't really experience anxiety over early on. And then as they aged, maybe they got into their 30s, into their late, or, moving into the 40s, and they feel that as they're aging, the anxiety is getting worse and worse and worse. And that's because we have a lot of impairment in the digestive tract. And what I should have said is, if you're watching this and you have questions or comments, you can post them, and I do monitor the comments while this live is going on. And so I'll be more than happy to answer those for you. So like I said, anxiety can manifest in a lot of different ways. And so I do weird things like this when I'm talking. And so for me, anxiety shows up in control and OCD type tendencies. And so when my anxiety is kind of at its highest, everything has to be kind of perfect. I can walk in the house and tell when like the couch has been moved an inch. I have to feel like I have to control all the situations. And if I don't have control over the situations, it will flare up my anxiety like you wouldn't believe. But everybody's triggers are kind of different. Yeah, everybody's triggers are different. So some people just only have social anxiety, or some people just only have anxiety in large crowds. So everybody's is different. There is no one size fits all when it comes to anxiety. So I think that's really important for people to know. Especially if you live with somebody that has anxiety, because what my anxiety looks like may not be what your anxiety looks like. So it's a little bit different for everybody. But for those of us that have not gone through something in their life that caused kind of the kickoff to anxiety, the majority of people's anxiety is really related to an imbalance in their gut. And so we're going to kind of talk about that tonight, and we're going to talk about how that can really dictate how your anxiety develops. So we're going to talk a lot about the gut-brain axis. We're going to talk about anxiety in the gut, and then we're going to talk about some tips for you to get back on track. Yes, Jamie, anxiety sucks. When mine's really bad, and mine's been really bad for the last couple of weeks, and I kind of go through these like ebbs and flows to where it's like from morning to night, it's super bad. I pick at like my skin on my neck, and I'll like pick at these, and I'll have like scabs everywhere. It's horrible. My husband will be like, "Stop picking at your neck," and it's like I can't help it, and he doesn't get it anyway. So yes, it sucks. Okay, so let's talk about gut-brain axis. So the gut and the brain, they talk to each other through various pathways. One of them that a lot of people are well aware of is called the vagus nerve. So the vagus nerve is this nerve that kind of, if you Google a picture, you will be amazed at how like intertwined this nerve is with the gut. And this is why when you're really nervous about something, you have diarrhea. It's because that's transmitting through the vagus nerve. It's disrupting the intestinal tract. It's causing more contractions, and it makes you have to run to the potty. But they also communicate, so the gut and the brain also communicate by way of the immune system and what's called the HPA axis, which is your hypothalamus, pituitary, and your adrenal glands, which is basically your stress response system. So those are kind of the three primary ways that the gut and the brain talk to each other. Your gut bacteria starts when you are in utero. So when you're growing in your mama's belly, you are starting to accumulate some gut bacteria. As soon as you come into the world, that gut bacteria continues to flourish. There are several studies that show that babies that are born vaginally have much more diverse gut bacteria than babies that are born via C-section. Things happen. We can't always control how. You don't really have a say in how you're born. It just kind of happens. But it just goes to show that your gut bacteria is constantly like changing and evolving, and there's so many environmental factors that can determine how your gut flora is established and where it kind of goes from there. Also, the health of the mom. So your mom's gut bacteria has a direct impact onto, how your gut bacteria develops as well. Let's see. So GI disorders can play a role in your gut-brain axis function. So IBS, IBD, so the different types of IBD, all of those can dictate how well your gut and your brain are communicating by way of gut bacteria. There's an interesting study. So people that have IBS also have abnormal CNS reactions. So your CNS is your central nervous system. It's basically the brain and the spine. So people that have IBS tend to have abnormal CNS reactions. They also have overactivation of the immune system and poor function of the HPA axis. So 70 to 80% of your immune system lies within your small intestine. And it's there for good reason. It's there because we're constantly taking in things by way of the mouth hole, food with pathogens on it and the air that we're breathing. And, if our dog licks us in our mouth, those sorts of things. So we're getting all of these things that are coming in contact with the digestive tract. And so the immune system is there to help neutralize any type of pathogens that are on the food. But what happens is when we're taking in large amounts of foods that our body was never meant to consume, i.e. sugar, alcohol, processed foods, fast foods, those sorts of things, trans fatty acids, all of those things that aren't really good for us, we continue to take them in, we are activating the immune system every time we consume that food. And so overactivation of the immune system over time leads to swelling in the small intestine, which leads to tight junctions becoming large junctions, which eventually leads into leaky gut. But with the overactivation of the immune system, leaky gut, then all of this crap kind of gets out into the system, and it affects how the HPA axis works. And it affects a lot of things in the body. So we're going to talk about that a little bit more. So altered HPA axis, immune health and gut function play a direct role in your, what happened here? I don't know what happened. So I'm just talking to myself. You'll have to apologize. I have to apologize. I don't know why you would have to apologize. Anywho, so your HPA axis, your immune health, and your gut functions play a direct role in your levels of anxiety and depression. So again, I am not saying that everybody that has anxiety and depression has a disordered gut, but the good majority of people do. And again, you can develop depression and anxiety. It can be, especially when depression is concerned, it can be a genetic link to it. It can be a situation that occurred that is affecting your depression or creating depression. So there's a lot of things that cause these disorders outside of the gut, but a lot of people, it starts in the digestive tract. So immune activation of the gut impairs the motor function. It also impairs your motor function. It also impairs your hunger and satiety patterns, so how hungry you get, how full you feel, and it also alters your blood-brain barrier. So around the brain, we have the blood-brain barrier, and it's there for a reason. It's so that everything kind of free-floating in the blood doesn't go in and affect the brain, which is basically like the powerhouse of a body, right? It's what keeps us kind of running. The heart does as well, but the brain is kind of, you know, that's like the engine of the car, right? And so we want to protect that with the blood-brain barrier. Now that blood-brain barrier can become breached. It can become altered over time. There's a lot of things that affect that. And so continued immune activation leads to, like I said earlier, leaky gut. And when the immune system is activated, the body releases what's called pro-inflammatory cytokines. So cytokines can be pro-inflammatory, they can be anti-inflammatory. They're basically these little molecule type critters that go around. And so once they kind of get outside the body, these pro-inflammatory cytokines create inflammation because they are pro-inflammatory. This leads to, it can lead to insulin resistance. It can lead to altered function of the HPA axis. It's going to lead to altered function of the blood-brain barrier. It's usually the number one reason why people have high cholesterol. So high cholesterol is usually not linked to dietary cholesterol. The more cholesterol that we consume, our body tends to regulate our cholesterol levels really well, and it will stop creating a lot of cholesterol because we make a good majority of our own cholesterol. So when people have high cholesterol, it's usually, for me, I immediately think, okay, they've got some inflammation happening somewhere in the body. We have to find the source, calm it down, so then the cholesterol levels come back to normal. And it's usually the gut. And so with increased gut permeability, these inflammatory cytokines get outside the digestive tract. And they, like I said, they alter the function of the blood-brain barrier, allowing for bad molecules to pass through. And so that kind of alters the function of our gut-brain axis. It increases symptoms of anxiety and depression. And then on the flip side, if we can stop the immune system from activating so much, then we can start to repair some of the processes in the body. So it's not fixable. It's definitely fixable. We just need to get to a point to where we can fix it. Okay, so pro-inflammatory cytokines will also kick off the stress response in the body, like I said, the HPA axis. I've talked about stress a lot. It's probably one of the number one things that I talk about because it affects us so greatly. A lot of people just see it as, oh, I had a stressful day, that was it, it's over and done with, but that's not necessarily the case. Stress over time leads to a lot of issues. HPA axis dysregulation is one of them. It can also have a direct effect on your anxiety levels. So good bacteria in the gut. I know that a lot of people know about probiotics. We talk about probiotics. Everybody's on a probiotic. I'm not Oprah. I'm not, you get a probiotic, you get a probiotic. So that's not kind of how I operate. But I try to balance out people's gut flora the best that I can. You can do specific testing to kind of see where your gut bacteria is, but it changes all the time. It can change within the hour. It can change within the day. There's kind of a lot that goes into gut bacteria. But it's good to know that you want more good bacteria than bad bacteria. I think most people know that. But good bacteria plays a role in the formation of your GABA, your serotonin, catecholamines, and your histamine. So GABA is a happy hormone. Serotonin obviously is a happy hormone. Your catecholamines are basically your stress response hormones. And then histamine is, if you think about allergic reactions. So all of our good bacteria create those things. So you have to think, if you don't have a lot of good bacteria or you have more bad bacteria than good bacteria, you're not producing a lot of GABA. You're not producing a lot of serotonin. Your stress response is jacked up because your catecholamines aren't being produced. And your histamine response is screwed because you're not producing the histamine that you need to keep that in check. So if we have an imbalance in that, you're going to have increased gut permeability. Your happy hormones are not going to be produced the way that they should. And then that's going to impair the communication between the gut and the brain. And so if the gut ain't happy, the brain ain't happy. And those also regulate sleep, mood, and cognitive function. Cognitive, it's a fun word, isn't it? Cognitive. Probably don't have to overpronounce it. I saw somebody today and they were like overpronouncing a word and I thought it was funny. I don't remember what word it was. But I tend to pick up on these like things that people never pick up on. Like when I'm a people watcher, so when I'm watching people, I always pick up on their tendencies. And I can always point out, I had a supervisor like 20 years ago and she used to always say, however, and I had to point it out to her once. She was like, no, I don't. And I said, you listen to yourself, you're going to say it. Anyway, so let's get back to the gut health. Okay, so how do you get better balance of good bacteria to bad bacteria? The dogs are playing. You eat fermented foods. So fermented foods are like kimchi, cabbage, fermented carrots, miso, kefir, a good quality yogurt, those sorts of things. I personally do not count a fermented food if it's been fermented with sugar. So like kombuchas, pickles, those sorts of things. To me, those aren't fermented. Technically, they're fermented. But you're also getting some sugar in them as well, which is the sugar intake kind of negates the benefits of the fermented food. So when you're consuming a fermented food, something that's not fermented with sugar, ideally is good. And then consuming prebiotics. So prebiotics are it feeds the good bacteria. So prebiotics are like onions and garlic and Jerusalem artichokes and asparagus and all these wonderful things, beans, things like that, things that create gas in the large intestine. They are creating these acids that feed the good bacteria. So taking in lots of prebiotics and then fermented foods is always the way to go. If you cannot tolerate fermented foods because you have a histamine intolerance, we definitely recommend you taking a good quality probiotic then. But it's one of the few times that I ever recommend people taking a probiotic. So that's just a start, right? So after you balance out the gut, you have to repair the gut, right? So testing is probably the number one thing that you can do as far as finding the foods that are activating your immune system, removing those foods so that you can allow the gut to heal. Because if you don't allow the gut to heal, you don't allow the immune system to kind of get back to get to a good baseline, it's going to continue to activate. So you can reduce your stress all day. You can take in all the prebiotics and the probiotics and the fermented foods all day. But if you still have swelling in the small intestine, if you still have active leaky gut, it's kind of all for naught at that point. So I definitely like to start with healing the gut first, repopulating with good quality bacteria, and then working on the other peripheral issues like the HPA axis. It's not a fun one to work on. It's very difficult. Not so much from my end. It's difficult to get clients to get on board with repairing your HPA axis. So your HPA axis, again, is your stress response. It's what feeds their stress response. It's what balances out the hormones in the body when it comes to the stress response. But really one of the few ways to repair it is to stop. Like seriously, just stop doing what you're doing. We work out really hard. We work out for long periods of time, and we work out like 6 days a week. And then we go to a super stressful job, and then we come home and we want to do all of these activities. But what we're not doing is slowing down. So really the one true way to repair the HPA axis is to slow down, to change the type of activity that you're doing from high intensity interval training to doing more like yoga and Pilates and more walking, more restorative type things. Making sure that you're getting 7 to 8 hours of sleep, 8 to 9 would even be better, each night. We want to stay up and watch the shows and hang with the fam and chill out with the spouse and whatever other things that we do in the evening, or go out, with friends, go out and have dinner and drinks and stuff like that. And then we'll get home at 11 or 12 at night, and we'll go to bed and we'll get up at 6 in the morning, but that's not really restoring the body. So the HPA axis is hard to repair because it requires the client to slow down. And so that's always a hard one to get across. It's one of the things that I tend to do last, because I want people to start feeling better, because once they start to feel better, they'll start to make some of these small changes on their own, or they'll start to see like, wow, I can really feel good. Okay, she told me that I would feel good. Now I can do all these other things that she tells me will work as well. So it requires a little bit of buy-in. But definitely limiting your high intensity interval training, doing restorative activities, 8 to 9 hours of sleep a night, and de-stressing. Definitely de-stressing. We can't remove the stress from our life. You can't quit your job. Oh, it'd be great, wouldn't it? Maybe if you win the Mega Millions tomorrow, maybe you can. But what you can do is you can change how that stress impacts you. You can let things roll off your shoulders a little bit easier. You can add in some belly breathing and meditation throughout the day. You can not stress about the small things because you can't really change those. So just trying to change your mindset a little bit, adding in some restorative thought processes throughout the day, that will tend to help a little bit as well. But definitely start with, when it comes to anxiety, again, a lot of it starts in the digestive tract by way of the foods that we're consuming and the lifestyle that we're leading. So if we can stop the activation of the immune system, repair the digestive tract, boost the good bacteria so that we can get our GABA and serotonin to start producing a little more, get the catecholamines going, repair the stress response in the body, it can help reduce the anxiety quite a bit. It may never go away, but it can definitely take the edge off so that it's not so debilitating for a lot of people. And so that is it. Like I said before, definitely check out the blog if you haven't. Let me see. I don't see any questions. Do I see any questions? Oh, Tyra's waving. Hi, Tyra. And Sherry. Oh, I missed all of these. Does hair color and loss caused by anxiety? So are you talking like graying hair? Graying is really, it's hereditary. There's a lot of, here's the really funny thing. So when I was in Afghanistan, I worked with an interpreter, and he would grind up pine nuts. He would consume pine nuts, but then he would put them on his scalp because he thought that it would stop balding. It's kind of like hair color. There's not a whole lot you can do about it. So hair color is not anxiety, depression related. It's more related to your genetics. So if like your parents started to go gray pretty early in life, there's a good chance you'll go gray early in life. Everybody goes gray at some point. But hair loss can definitely be caused by anxiety. There's a lot of different, and this is how I link it. So it's kind of like an indirect link, right? So bear with me for a moment. So an anxious type person or a situation is not going to cause your hair to fall out. But because we just talked about the gut, right, and how that plays into your anxiety, if your gut is impaired, you are not going to absorb the protein that you need. You are also not going to absorb the iron that you need, which also both go into hair loss. So if I have clients that have hair loss, I immediately think, okay, something's happening in the gut. They're either not eating enough protein or iron, or their body is not absorbing it in the way that they should. And oh, by the way, thyroid issues can also cause hair loss. So if you have thyroid problems, or if you just have generalized hormone imbalance, all of those can cause hair loss, which can all happen from disordered gut. So if you have hair loss, there's definitely a little more investigating that needs to be done. But if you're a guy, there might just be a little hereditary balding in there. Let me see. No, the husband's gone. I was going to poke fun at him because he's a chrome dome. Laughter is a great stress reliever. Yes, yes, yes. And cooking in a cast iron, Tyra says, cooking in cast iron helps my anemia. Yes. So if people tend to be iron deficient or they have anemia, those are, I typically like to tell them to eat lots of leafy greens and make sure that you're eating plenty of vitamin C at the time that you're eating the leafy greens. Like cooking with some, I can see a lemon. There it is. I could see it in my head. I couldn't get the word out. So cooking with a lemon, so squeezing lemon juice over any type of greens that you're cooking, or eating them raw and squeezing some lemon. So vitamin C helps the body absorb non-heme iron. And then obviously cooking in a cast iron skillet will definitely help to boost your iron. So I try not to have people take iron supplements just because they can be very... It can cause constipation in a lot of people. That's why if you ever got an iron supplement, they always tell you to take a stool softener as well. So definitely cast iron skillet's a great way to get boost your iron intake. I don't see any other questions. If you are watching this after the fact and you have any questions, you can definitely leave them. I monitor the comments and I'd be more than happy to answer them for you. If you haven't read the blog, check it out. There's a little bit more information. I also linked to a bunch of other blogs. So if you're like me and you kind of like go down these rabbit holes, you'll have fun because there's like 3 or 4 different linked blogs in there that you can check out. And that is it. I will see you guys next week. What are we talking about? Oh, we're talking about Hashimoto's and diet. So we're going to talk about more gut stuff, lots of gut stuff, because most things start in the gut. And so that is it. I'll see you guys next week. Bye.